So another way that we can kind of describe a quadratic function is by its direction. So the direction of a quadratic is determined by the a value. So remember, that is basically that first number when written in standard form, so the coefficient of your x squared term. If a is greater than 0, or in other words, if it's positive, that means that my graph is going to open upward. And it has a minimum value. So for instance, it would look something like this. It's going to open up, and it's going to have a minimum value, and that just means that its vertex, it's only going to have the smallest value it can be. It can't have a maximum because it's going to continue forever upwards. If a is less than 0, in other words negative, that means it opens downward and has a maximum value. So that means my graph would look something like this, where it's opening down, and I would have a maximum value because there would be the highest point that my graph goes, but I don't have a minimum value because it's going to continue forever downwards. And the minimum/maximum value is always going to be the y value of the vertex. So looking back at this example here, since this graph is opening upwards, it would have a minimum value, and the minimum value would be -5, the y value of the vertex. So let's look at some examples. So we're going to look at these equations and tell whether the graph of the quadratic function opens up or down, and then we're going to explain. So first I want to see, is this written in standard form? So is my highest exponent first and then my lowest? I see it is. I want to go ahead and figure out which one's my a value. So I'm just going to label them all. So a, b, and c. And so I see that my a is equal to 5. And I'm going to think to myself, okay, is this positive or negative? Well, it's greater than 0, so it's positive. And based on my notes, when a is greater than 0, that means it's going to open up. Okay, looking at this next one, first I see it is in standard form, so that means that my a value is just this first number. I see that this is positive, so this again opens up. Look at my next one. First, is this in standard form? It is. So I have x squared, then x, and then 1. So my a is equal to -4, which this is actually negative. It's less than 0. So that means that this one opens down. Okay, now look at this last one. Okay, first, is it in standard form? No, this one isn't. My x squared term is second. So I'm going to first change this to be standard form. And here, remember that this minus sign is staying with that 3. So this is really a -3x squared. This 5 is positive, so it's still going to stay positive. So here a equals -3, which is less than 0. So that means that this one also opens down.